Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is Smiley and today I'm very excited to be talking with you guys, not about a movie or a TV show or a piece of tech or a video game, but about something that's very near and dear to my heart. Today we're going to be talking about the state of 4K and why 4K matters. Why it's important. This is going to be a long one, so grab a soda, grab some popcorn, sit back, relax with your lovable host Smiley, and welcome to the state of 4K. Let's start out with a couple positive points about 4K. Apple has done an amazing job implementing 4K into the iTunes service. If you previously purchased a movie in HD, it will be available for you in 4K for free. In fact, there's no longer an HD 1080p option. There are only two options on the iTunes store where 4K movies are available, and that's standard definition, and now they call it higher definition, which could be either 1080p or 4K. And they haven't marked up the prices at all. Most retailers mark up the prices on 4K by about $5 to $10. I've seen it as high as sometimes even like 15 bucks. And that's ridiculous. So I'm very happy that Apple has gone ahead and made it so that there's kind of a standard price for movies in the digital realm. Also, Apple actually puts their 4K movies on sale. So if normally something that you like is $19.99 in 4K, and that movie happens to be $9.99 for a week, you'll be able to get that movie in 4K for $9.99 or cheaper. I got The Princess Bride in 4K from iTunes for like $5 on one of the days they had it on sale. And that was fucking amazing. I love The Princess Bride. And as far as selection goes, Apple is high up there. Like, the only thing that even comes close to beating Apple is the 4K Blu-rays, which we'll talk about later in the video. But Apple has a staggeringly large collection of 4K content, and it grows every week. They're converting more and more older stuff to 4K, and they're getting a lot of newer stuff in 4K. So whether you like movies that are older or newer, you're going to have 4K content to enjoy. And even a couple cases, Apple has a 4K copy of a movie before the 4K Blu-ray even exists. For District 9 especially, way before the 4K Blu-ray came out, iTunes had it on sale for $10 fucking. That was awesome. With Apple and iTunes, you're really getting the best prices and the best selection. And again, Apple is the cheapest in the 4K realm, seeing as most movies that Apple has in 4K are actually more expensive on 4K Blu-ray than they are on iTunes, which is pretty incredible, and I'm really happy with them for that. And I think if Apple keeps going this way, they might just dominate the 4K streaming market. The only problem with Apple's 4K catalog is that they don't yet offer TV shows, and it doesn't seem like they have an intention to at this point. However, that may change in the future, so I'll let you guys know as that develops. Next, I'd like to talk about an extremely popular form of 4K viewing, and that's 4K Blu-rays. These guys right here. If you can't tell, Westworld is a TV show, so some TV shows you can get 4K Blu-rays of. Bitchin', by the way, if you haven't seen Westworld, watch it in 4K. Worth it. But there's a huge selection of 4K Blu-rays out there, and I really like them, except for a few things. There are some issues with them. There are, however, some cool things about them. The coolest of which being it doesn't count against your home internet data caps. Which, if you have internet at your house, you've probably heard of these things called data caps. And ISPs generally don't tell you about data caps until you hit them, which is pretty fucking shady, I think. But that's one of the cool things about 4K Blu-rays. You can get that huge amount of content without hurting your data cap, which is cool because I still do have a data cap in my house. I do have a 4K TV and 4K streaming services left and right. I'm constantly streaming content in 4K. I'm not just streaming content in 4K, I don't have a cable box. So everything I watch is through streaming. So I hit my data cap every month, basically. So those things do need to be taken care of. The only real problem with 4K Blu-rays is that you need to have a special Blu-ray player for it. And some of these things are like $300, and that's ridiculous for a fucking what is essentially just a DVD player. Alright, I could go to the Apple store and get the Apple TV 4K, I think it's like $180, or the Nvidia Shield, which has supported 4K for fucking like 4 years now, and that's only like $200. So both of those streaming boxes support 4K for under $300. So that's the only real problem I see with 4K Blu-rays, is that in addition to requiring a $800 plus TV, if you really want to get the full 4K HDR out of it, you also have to have a $300 plus 4K Blu-ray player, which is insane. And I've had problems with 4K Blu-ray players in the past. I bought the Xbox One S for the specific purpose of playing 4K Blu-rays, and I watched a few movies on it, and then lo and behold, turns out Microsoft had an issue where video and audio would desync literally all the time, to the point where it became completely unusable to watch a movie on. Now I don't even use my Xbox One S anymore, because Microsoft has yet to fix that AV sync problem, which is ridiculous. I can't believe that they would put the 4K Blu-ray player in the Xbox One S as a selling point and then not fix this huge glaring issue of audio not matching up with video. So there are problems with 4K Blu-ray players out there. It's not exactly a plug-and-play experience just yet, and that's why I think that the streaming boxes, even though they're still home data caps, are more fun, at least from a user perspective. It's a lot more fun to click on a movie from a menu of 1,000 movies to watch than it is to get up out of your chair, eject the last disc you had in there, take the disc out of the box for the new movie, put it in the thing, take out the old disc, put it in its box, and you gotta watch, then you gotta fucking navigate through the fucking menu screen with the fucking... It's too much work. Especially in the days of picking up a controller and saying, hey, I wanna watch this, and then the fucking assistant or Siri just fucking throws it on the TV for you. So, there's that problem too. Physical media requires physical work. That being said, I do love my 4K Blu-ray collection. I still buy 4K Blu-rays, even though I generally don't watch them unless I'm trying to impress someone. If I'm watching something in 4K, I generally want to be watching it on iTunes, not even really Google. And we'll get to Google in a second, because I do want to talk about them. I have some words for Google on their 4K, but I'll get to them in a sec. So, 4K Blu-rays do offer TV shows, have some things that people like iTunes and Google don't have, but I really don't think that the selection is good enough for you, the average consumer, to go out and buy a $300 fucking 4K Blu-ray player and $30 Blu-rays, as opposed to just going on iTunes or Google and buying a digital copy of the thing. So that's really where 4K Blu-rays stand at this point. Just very briefly now, I do want to touch on Netflix and Amazon's Prime Video, because both those do offer 4K. Netflix offers 4K on their movies and their TV shows, and some other movies and some TV shows, it's kind of a toss-up whether or not they're going to have something in 4K or not. However, Netflix does have an incredible compression system, so you probably won't hit your cap if you're using Netflix to stream 4K, and that's pretty fucking cool. Amazon, I can't touch on too much, because the only thing I've watched in 4K on there, or really the only thing I've watched from Amazon, is The Man in the High Castle. But Man in the High Castle looked great in 4K, I'll tell you that much. So yeah, if you have a Netflix account or an Amazon Prime subscription and you just got a 4K TV, highly recommend firing one of those up to give that bad boy a test. And finally, we're going to talk about Google. Google announced that they would be supporting 4K, I think back in 2016 at the first Made by Google event, where they announced the first Pixel phone, the Chromecast Ultra, and the Google Home. And they have yet to perfect it. Actually, they have yet to really do anything about it. Google doesn't really have anything going for it in the way of its 4K market. It's just terrible. It's a fucking mess. First of all, when you search for 4K content on Google Play, you are not greeted with a full list of 4K movies. You are greeted with part of the list of 4K movies, and there's no actual way to find a complete list of things in 4K. You kind of just have to click on things and find out if they're in 4K or not. And another problem is, on that list of 4K movies, and really anything that Google offers in 4K, it's a toss-up of whether you'll be able to buy it or only rent it. Because there are things on there that you're only able to rent in 4K, like the Star Trek movies, and the Transformers movies, and Shutter Island, and The Big Short, and Forrest Gump, and the Mission Impossibles, and World War Z. And there's a lot that Google for some reason restricts you to renting as opposed to buying. I, in fact, have purchased movies in 4K, and Google for some reason will no longer have the 4K copy, and then they take that 4K copy away from me without refunding my money. So I bought 10 Cloverfield Lane in 4K for $30 from Google, as opposed to their $15 in HD copy, and all of a sudden, they lose their 4K copy. I don't know what happened. Problems with the studio or whatnot, whatever happens, it happens. But they did not refund me that extra money, and so I'm just sitting with this fucking $30 charge on my account and no 4K movie, which is bullshit. Let's say you buy a movie in HD on Google, and then all of a sudden, that movie is now available in 4K. How do you go about getting that movie in 4K as opposed to HD? Now, if you're used to iTunes, you'll probably say, well, won't that be upgraded for free? To which I'll say, fuck no, that won't be upgraded for free. You know what you have to do to replace your HD movie with a 4K one on Google Play? You have to get on the phone, call Google, get your receipt number for the movie that you purchased in HD that you want to now purchase in 4K. They have to return and refund the movie, and then, and only then, can you buy it in 4K. That's bullshit. Now, the only good thing here is that Google seems to be extending their return and refund policy past the standard 30 days to accept upgrades for this. However, the fact that there is not a $5 or $10 upgrade button on the Google Play product page is complete and utter bullshit, especially like 2 years after launch now. Google is just so fucking lazy with regards to Google Play, it may as well not even exist. I don't understand why Android phones don't come stock with the iTunes store, for fuck's sake. And I've spoken to Google many times over the last few months, less since I've gotten the iPhone 10 and moved from my Pixel 2, but every time I spoke to them, they said, oh yeah, we're working on a way so you can upgrade your movies from HD to 4K. Every single time they have said that, and every single time they have been fucking lying to me. I can't believe it. Google, a multi-billion-dollar company, cannot figure out how to upgrade you from HD to 4K. Brilliant. We're moving into the future real quick. It's really hard to find any kind words for Google because they've been in this space longer than Apple, and Apple has been consistently nailing it with their 4K content catalog. And Google, even though they now have Apple as an example of how to handle 4K media, they're not making any moves on it, even though they have specifically released a Chromecast Ultra for 4K streaming. It doesn't seem like Google is interested in refining its own content whatsoever. So I highly, highly recommend you not purchase anything in 4K from the Google Play Store, because until they fix these problems, I don't think that they deserve your business. But I have been critical about Google in the past, but the reason I'm so critical of Google is because I really do love Google as a company. I purchased the first Pixel back when it came out. I purchased the Pixel 2 before I even watched the announcement video for it. I have a Chromecast Ultra even though I have an Nvidia Shield hooked up. I have a Google Home Mini even though I have a Google Home in the same room. I love Google and I love the services that they offer as a whole. But with regards to 4K, they really have just missed the mark completely, and they need to know that. So all these options out there for 4K streaming, Apple comes out as the clear winner to me personally, just because their catalog is brilliant, their system for upgrading your previously purchased movies to 4K is also brilliant and requires you to do literally nothing, which is how it should be, and they are far and away the best priced of even the 4K Blu-rays out there. So I think that they kind of knock all the competition out of the water here. However, until we start reining in data caps from ISPs and we get consumer protection laws back in place, I don't think streaming 4K is going to be a thing many people can do for a while. These data caps are stopping people from cutting cords, and they're stopping people from moving to 4K. And if it's stopping those two things, then in a sense, data caps are stifling innovation. And it's stopping you from getting the most out of your devices. If you have a device with a 4K screen, and you can't watch things in 4K because your ISP says no, that's too much bandwidth, they are robbing you of that 4K screen that you paid for. In the meantime, though, I hope you guys did enjoy this extended look at the state of 4K. I really enjoyed making it. I really enjoyed researching and writing this one. So, if you guys liked this video, please leave a like down below. If you didn't like this video, hit that dislike button. But I would much prefer it if you hit the like button, because personally, I think this is a really cool video. And in those comments down below, why don't you guys let me know how you guys like to consume your digital content. And as always, I hope you have an amazing week. Keep it kosher. Peace.